Welcome back to First Look, the show where we give you a sneak peek at an upcoming game. This one is going to be from a brand new game from Breaking Games and designer Luke Laurie. It's called Dwellings of Eldervale.
Yeah, we had a chance to play this one at Gamma, and it was a real treat. So we wanted to get it to the table and show you guys how. Must be said, we've said this before, we have prototype components here, but trust us, these are prototype components. We'll be putting up on screen a bunch of really cool artwork, player boards, some of the cards that they've already shown us. So just keep that in mind. All of this is very, very much prototype.
Let's first talk about what kind of game this is. At its heart, it is a mid-weight Euro game that is a worker placement style game. However, there's a lot of different mechanisms that play into that. It is an engine builder. It has hand management. It has variable player powers for all the different types of civilizations or factions that you're going to be playing. And then, of course, it is a worker placement game, meaning you're going to be taking your dragons, your wizards, your warriors, and your workers and placing them on the board in order to do very specific things. One of the cool things about this game, though, is that you're never locked out of positions. You can always go to areas and then take the action of those particular areas, which are represented in this game by tiles.
Yeah, you're going to take those things. You're going to take any action. It's just going to be followed by a fight if someone else is there. This game definitely has combat in it, but this is a game that's not built around combat. Like Jeremy said, it is a worker placement game. You're going out there doing what you want, getting some things done, potentially having a little bit of a skirmish with someone, and then hopefully getting your engine going back at your player board. The other cool thing about the worker placement aspect, much like Luke Laurie's other game, Energy Empire, is you're going to be doing this out of sync potentially with all the other players. So this is not a game where everyone's putting their workers out and then everyone's taking their workers back. You get to choose when you want to regroup whenever you want. I could put one worker out and then regroup. The cool thing about this is when you're regrouping, you're pulling those workers back and doing a lot of things that you've built around your player board and on your player board.
Speaking of your player board, everyone's going to come to the table with one of the many different factions. We have a variety of factions in front of us. They're each going to represent one of the 8 different elements that are within the Dwellings of Eldervale. Each of these player boards, and again, these are prototype you're seeing here, are going to be double-sided, meaning that you have the option of playing either one of these two sides. Each of these have variable player powers, meaning that for one player, their dragons and their warriors may do something special, but for another player, their workers and their wizards may do something else.
Yeah, everyone's going to start with 3 little workers to get the job done at first. But throughout the game, through a variety of different spaces on the board and back on your player board, you can summon some of these other characters that Jeremy just mentioned. The dragon, the wizard, the warrior, and plus some more workers. You're going to need those workers because the name of the game is Dwellings of Eldervale. You're going to be using these guys to actually build dwellings out in this map.
Now, speaking of the map, it's going to be broken into a number of different tiles. During setup, you're going to set them up according to the rules. However, you're going to play with an X number of elements. These elements are going to be represented by the tiles and also the different kind of cards that you can pull from. That number is equal to the number of players plus 2. So in a 4-player game, you're going to start with 4 elemental tiles plus 2, meaning you're only playing with 6 of those 8 elements, which is going to drastically change your abilities, the cards that are used, and even the monsters that are going to be roaming over the landscape.
Yeah, it must be said, each of these elemental realms, if you will, has a monster associated with them. And even these guys are double-sided, so you're going to get one of 2 different monsters for each element. These things are going to come out on the board. At the beginning of the game, you're going to have 1. You only have 1 to deal with. But throughout the game, you're going to be adding tiles to the map in Eldervale. And as you do, you may flip an elemental region that has yet another monster that comes into play. These guys are going to basically behave on their own for the most part. You have to watch out for them. They're going to rush you. They're going to do a variety of different effects in Eldervale. Plus, if you have the right cards or the right abilities, you can even take control of some of the monsters.
Speaking not only of the variability of your player boards and the monsters and the different cards, you also have a ton of variability in the magic cards. You're going to be drawing magic cards in your hand through one of the spots in the game. These magic cards can consist of 3 different types of cards. You have spell cards that you're going to be using to fling spells back and forth between players. You have quest cards that you're trying to go out to specific spots in order to collect resources and gain points. And then you also have prophecy cards, which are just end of the game points. So how you collect these and how you manipulate those through your round is going to determine how well you're going to be able to do.
Now we're going to talk about 2 more things in this first look. We're going to have more content on this game for sure. But in this first look, we're going to talk about battle, and we're going to talk about all of the adventure cards that you can collect. I'll start with the battle. This board here represents all of the different magics in the realm, in Eldervale. You're going to be going up these tracks. That's going to have some impact on a variety of different things in this game. First and foremost, the points you're going to score. But at the bottom of this, you're going to see the Underworld and then the Glory track. This comes into play when you fight on the board. Like we said earlier, if you go out into a realm and someone's there, you get to do the action, but then there's a fight that occurs. Now, I won't go into all the details because it is actually quite robust, but everyone around the table is going to have an opportunity to potentially join the fight if they're adjacent to it. And then you're going to be able to add swords to increase and mitigate the dice that you have. And then everyone's going to ultimately roll up their dice. Yes, there is dice rolling in this, but there's quite a bit of control you have over that in a variety of different ways. And potentially win or lose that battle. The losers of the battle are going to go to the Underworld. Underworld are going to get you swords to use in future battles. So there is some consolation that's actually quite useful when you lose. The winner is going to be able to go up on the Glory track. This is going to give a number of different rewards. Plus, they're going to be able to maintain their position on the map so that they can hopefully build a dwelling.
Yeah, and it can't be understated what David said previously about the turn structure. This is what I want to talk about. I love this aspect of the game. Either you're placing your workers into Eldervale and being able to manipulate those tiles, or you're spending your turn to regroup them. This is awesome. On the right-hand side of your player board, you're going to have a number of different actions that you can pull your workers back and place them on these areas. Not to mention, all the adventure cards that you've collected are also going to build this giant tableau off to the side. Those two are going to be able to hold your workers to be able to do very special actions, so you can tailor your character to do things to the game that other players aren't doing and take advantage of those tiles and that scoring structure at the end of the game.
Yeah, the other really cool thing about your player board and those adventure cards is these tokens that you're going to be collecting when you go out onto the map of Eldervale. These tokens can be traded in immediately for the corresponding resources, but they can also be used on your player board and on those cards to enhance them. So if you have a card that's going to give you one potion, you potentially could replace it with this tile so it's going to give you a potion or a scroll. So it gives you some flexibility or potentially gives you even more of what you got before.
It's not often that we're incredibly impressed the first time that we look at a game, as David alluded to. We saw this one at Gamma. We played it once and fell in love with the game. You've played it many times since. Understanding that this was just a prototype, you're seeing some final art here behind us. David will put some more in the video. If you guys have any questions about this, make them in the comments below. Make sure you guys check out their Kickstarter. Come back in a couple weeks for our round one when we cover the game in full, and we will catch you guys next time.
Bye-bye.